Welcome to the Voice of Vicious podcast. Welcome to the Fuck Voice of Vicious podcast. I am your host, Vanny Vicious. Guys, I'm sweating. Look at me on a microphone, bro. What the fuck? We fucking see ourselves being...
Oh my god, look at my arms.
Jacked.
Fucking ripped. I know. People are like, yo, you look, but I'm smaller.
Yeah.
I'm just,
but you know,
but I lost fat correctly.
Yes.
I didn't,
you
like,
never
I have
look
muscle.
emaciated and
No.
shit. Like, you always look
Oh,
strong.
yeah. I see some of them and I'm like, and it's funny because I never, like, you know, I don't look at myself. But then when I looked at myself, I was like, shit, I'm jacked.
But you're also, like, a very responsible fighter because you don't gain fucking 14, 15, 20, 30 pounds when you're not in camp. So, like, your cuts are never crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you never have that sunken
I like
in.
food.
Yeah.
I like food too much.
When you're healthy and you eat, like, you never have that sunken
It's like
in.
we're what, a day and a half away from a weigh-in and I'm like,
yeah. Walking around, like, I just saw her eat a bowl of ground beef and, like, whatever else was in there, some sour cream or yogurt or something. Yeah. You have to keep eating. Yep. It's, like, so important. But Maureen Shea is back, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
I haven't seen her in so long, and she hasn't been here in a while. For those that don't know, what you probably do, Maureen is a 2-time world champion, bad bitch, boxer. We had her like on the 3rd episode, and now she's back. Since you were here last, you had 2 fights.
Yep. In August, back to back.
So tell us how those fights went. I watched both of them, but obviously you let us know.
A lot has happened. You know, there's a lot of epiphanies for myself too. But so in those fights, so what, you know, I'll let everybody know, it's really hard for me to get fights. So I was actually in 2020 before COVID, I fought in January and I was supposed to fight for the WBA world title that May, and then COVID hit and the fights didn't happen. So I was in and out of the rankings, which is crazy. I should have stayed in the rankings. I was ranked number 1, and a lot of, like, you know, surprise boxing has politics and corruption. But so things happened, and you know, it was in and out. So I was having a hard time getting fights and staying active. So, and I wasn't getting the world title shots that were rightfully mine. So I was fighting, I think, then 2020, and then I fought again. I think it was like 2022 or 20. I don't even remember. It goes back so far, maybe 2023. So it took me like a year. I was out for 2 years, and then I fought, and then I'm like, all right, great. Had a great comeback against a solid opponent. I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna be back in the rankings, and nothing. And then I fought again, and then again, and a year later, nothing. Then I got a contract. It was one of the sanctioning bodies were like, okay, you're gonna fight for the interim world title because the world champion was she was injured. So the girl that was ranked number 1 and I was ranked number 2, they're like, oh, you two fight for the interim title. That means it's like the title before the world title. So I said, okay, got the contract, signed the contract, ready to go. To find out the promoter for that girl didn't ever submit the contract to the sanctioning body, to find out that the girl that was injured now came out of injury and fought. So I got completely bypassed. That was at 122. Next thing I know, I'm no longer in the rankings. And I'm like, and I laugh now, but during that time, I mean, you can look on my Instagram. I think I have it down there. I should pin it again so people can see how frustrated I was. Because I'm like, it's like blatant in my face. And it's like, I have over 30, I hadn't lost a fight in over a decade. Like, how much more do I have to prove that I'm not getting these opportunities? And
you gotta make an OnlyFans.
Yeah, right? I know, right? Maybe if I would have done that. So it was like, you know, it was terrible, you know, and it was really disheartening for me. So then I get the opportunity. So I had fought August of, what are we in? We're 2025. So 2023, I fought in August, and then I didn't get another fight until August of 2024. And I'm like, and they offered me 2 fights back to back. I'm like, well, I don't know when I'm going to get to fight again. So I had a fight in Worcester, Massachusetts, at the Polar Park, and that was August 10th. I might have my dates a little messed up, but August 10th. And then we were going to come back and fight here at the Hard Rock on, I think, was it August 22nd? Something like that.
It was like 2 weeks apart.
Yeah, they were exactly 2 weeks apart. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, and, you know, obviously I take one fight at a time. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. So what happened was there was a hard time getting opponents because it's hard for me to get fights because it's like girls don't want to fight. And then if the fight doesn't make sense, why am I doing it? Like, these girls that are good, I'm like, I'll fight them, but it's got to be for a world title. Like, that's really all I'm interested in. Otherwise, I'm taking stay busy fights, and I don't underestimate any of my opponents. You know, they're always coming to fight, and I respect that. So the girl that they had at the Hard Rock, the opponent they had set, the girl that they couldn't get a girl for Massachusetts. So they took the girl from the Hard Rock and moved her to Massachusetts. This is my manager who I've been with since I was 21. Like does not have the easiest job. So they moved her to the Massachusetts fight, and then they were trying to get somebody for the Hard Rock because I had sold a ton of, I hadn't sold tickets yet, but we knew that we could sell a lot of tickets.
Yeah, it's your hometown.
Yes. Now, how do I get paid? This is something people don't understand. For me, because I'm self-promoted, if the promoters don't just put you on and pay you. You got to sell tickets. So there's different deals that each promoter has, whether it's, you buy the slot, there's a slot fee, and then you sell tickets, and then you have to split the tickets or whatever the percentages that you give the promoter, and then you get paid based off that. So you're literally hustling all the time.
Which is so crazy because you're trying to focus on like cutting weight, training, and everything you have to do, and now you have to meet up with people and sell them tickets, and it's...
And people like at your level, why are you doing this? I mean... Partially is because, and I take accountability, it's how we're managing my career. And I posted something the other day regarding like I've done it on my own terms, but it was better for me, to build my career the way that I did. I believe everything happened for a reason. So rewind, go back to that fight. I go to Worcester. I still don't know who the opponent is for the next fight, but I'm not focused on the Hard Rock fight. I'm focused on the Worcester fight. I get out there. The day before I leave for Worcester, my dog, who's 8.5 pound Doxy Poo, he's 11, or he was 10 at the time. He ends up, I have to bring him to the ER because he's just not, like, something's wrong. And my friend Jen, who's a vet, was like, she's a vet tech. She's like, you need to take him now. So I took him to the ER, and the vet was like, listen, we don't know what's wrong with him, but we don't recommend you send him home. We could send him home with some medication and see what, I'm like, I'm leaving the next day at 2:00, and I couldn't cancel the fight. Like, there was a lot of money put in. There's a lot of things that were done, a lot of tickets that were sold.
And you hadn't fought in a while.
Exactly. And I'm just like, oh God, what do I do? And I literally just prayed about it. And I was like, okay, like, I'm going to leave him here. That was the most logical thing to do. So I left him there. It was so hard for me. But, with my experience and my faith, because I realized what's in my control, what's not in my control. And I just prayed about it. But it was so bad that I got to the point where I told the vet, the day before the weigh-in when I was out in Worcester. I mean, they were great. It was at the veterinary hospital in Lake Worth. They were wonderful. They took care of him. They stayed in touch with me. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And that's what kept happening. And people are like, oh, they were just trying to take your money. I'm like, my friend Jen was there. I don't think it was that. I think there was a problem. It ended up being he was on a medication that was they gave him the other vet that I'd seen before them had given him the wrong dose for like 2 months. So he had some serious issues. So, but he's got like heart.
Try to, now that we're like here, try to explain to people what it is to be, not everyone that listens to this is an athlete or a fighter or, try to explain to them what it's like to have something like this in the back of your mind when you're about to go in the ring and get fucking punched in the face.
Well, it's the preparation, and it's really hard because your focus needs to be on the fight. And no matter how much experience I have and what I've been through, because I've been through a lot in boxing.
A fight's a fight.
Yeah, it's still, you're going in there and every time you're different, So you have to learn how to literally put that in the back of your head, and that takes energy. And all the energy you want to put into the fight, you're now using some of it to keep that out of the fight. And again, I hadn't fought in over a year, and it's like, and that's a testament to my professionalism that I knew, and my maturity, and what I've been through in boxing throughout my career. I had 2 losses, when I went into this fight already, which were like in 2008. So it had been a while since I lost because I was fighting, but I had, over a decade. But, I understood what I needed to do, and I understood the job at hand. So it was very difficult, but I knew when I went out there, I had to literally put it in God's hands and say to my best friend and my mom, I said, you guys have to make the decision whether they have to put him down or not. But I had to make peace knowing that I just wanted him to be okay. Yeah. And it wasn't about me. It was about him. I didn't want him suffering. And, animal lovers, it's hard. Anybody, especially if it's a loved one, if it's an animal, whatever, you just don't want them to suffer. But there's a selfishness inside of you that's like, I don't want to lose them.
Right.
Too, which is normal. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, I knew what I was feeling, but I knew I had to just trust. So what ended up happening was the day before the weigh-in, I called the vet. I said, listen, this is who I'm giving. I had to like write something and tell them this is who I'm giving the authority to do whatever's needed. So the good news is that I fought. I was able to put it outside of my mind, and he was better. He got better, and he's doing really well right now. I mean, we're on borrowed time because he's 11 and he's got congestive heart failure, and he's on a ton of medication. But man, this dog he's such an example for me of resilience, like serious resilience. And so another thing people need to understand is fighting back to back like that I'm 44 now, but I was 43 at the time, and I have all this experience, is really not recommended. But here I am thinking, like, I'm doing it because I'm not going to get fights. Right. Whether it was the right decision.
Who knows when the next one will be.
Yeah. So whether it was the right decision or the wrong decision, it was a risk. And throughout my career, I've taken many risks. And what's life without taking risks? Like, what am I going to do? Just like, I'm like, okay, it's there. I'm going to do it. And, you look back and you say hindsight's 2020, but I own the moment, when I make the decision. And that's the thing. When you make a decision, own it. Just try to make the best decision you can. And then afterwards, don't beat yourself up about it. Just go forward. So 2 weeks later, I come back from the fight in Worcester.
Hold on. Before you get to that fight, the first one.
Yeah.
What the fuck was happening because someone was trying to live stream on your Instagram, right? Yeah. And that was like the only way we were able to watch the stream or whatever. Yeah. And they just kept like, okay, we'll be back. And it's like you tried to walk out like fucking 4 times.
So so like it was funny because the rope broke. So I check the ring before I fight. I always get in the ring and feel out the ring to see if there's any divots. And I fought in Mexico a lot in my career, and those rings are not the most stable. So I've been in situations where I'm like, I've learned where you go and test the ring to know where the divots are and how tight the ropes, and knowing the spatial awareness of the ring. And so they called me out, and I was there ready to walk, and then they put me back twice. And I had to laugh about it because I was like, well, it's been a year since I fought. I mean, what's another 10 minutes? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I had to make light of it instead of being like, again, it goes back to like what's in your control. And I think that's why I love boxing, because you're almost like you're in control, but you're out of control in there. You know what I mean? And I think I love the fight. I love that. I love the unknown and the challenge of the unknown. So, and that's why a big reason why I love the sport, know? So we won that fight. It was an 8-round decision. I went 8 rounds. Every time I go 8 rounds, I haven't gone less than 8. Since 2020 was the last time I fought 6 rounds. So here I am fighting 8 rounds the last 4 or 5 fights that I had, which were spread out, or 4 fights.
Throughout some years.
Yeah, throughout years and time, whatever. So now I come home and I'm like, okay, now I got to sell tickets. And I'm like, all right, but we were coming off the hype of the Massachusetts fight. And I have just the most amazing supporters that come and support me, and that, ones that have been with me since I started, since I was an amateur, like since $1 Million Baby when I worked on, things like that. So I had a ton of people come out flying in from out of state to come see me fight for in the Hard Rock. So we had that fight, still no opponent. And I'm like, okay, I got to let go, and I took the risk. I committed to the risk. Now I'm not pulling out of the fight. I'm in it. So we still don't know who we're fighting. And I'm like, all right, whatever it is, I'm just going to go in there.
And when did you find out who your opponent was?
The day of the fight. The day of the fight. I actually never saw her at the weigh-in. I didn't see any. So what's interesting is I haven't talked about this because I'm not one to look for excuses. I'm just like, all right, it is what it is. And there were just a lot of things leading up to that fight. I don't feel like the back-to-back was a physical issue for me. I feel like I was totally fine. Yeah. And I felt great.
You weren't hurt or anything.
No, and I specifically made, because this fight was the first fight was at 122. But I was walking around like at like 126, 127. So I was like, oh, I'd like to know what it feels like to fight at 118. And so I actually came in at 119 for the fight in Massachusetts. And the girl was 121.6. So her contracted weight was 122. So was mine. But I was like, all right, let's just see what my body does. Mm-hmm. So I went down to 119, and it wasn't a struggle. So this fight, we had it at 118. So I actually was and I didn't struggle. And I was 117.8 at the weigh-in, which you were there. Mm-hmm. And you saw the girl wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And you saw... So then I get handed a contract,
which is such a weird like weigh-in, because like you want to see the fighters like
face
each other, and like it builds like this hype, and it was just like Maureen on stage like, I'm here.
And it's weird for me because there's something in the face-off there's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
And an exchange of
it's
like
the first
intensity.
time you're seeing this person, you're seeing how big or small they are. Like if you
and you're feeling an energy because, and as you know, like you're the same. I'm very intuitive, so I can feel.
Yeah.
And I don't look at my opponents. I look through my opponents,
Right.
and I can see their eyes, their reaction. You can tell a lot.
And you want to feel their fear
Intensity
a little
or
bit,
or their confidence,
Yeah,
whatever
or-
they're going to come with.
Right,
You're
right.
going to be like, all right, but you don't. Again, it's just like, yeah, it's very important. It's part of the ceremonial.
It's part of it. Yeah.
So I get handed a contract, and they're like, the girl's coming in, and she's going to be heavy. She's coming in at 124, and we have to be within, I think it was like 6 pounds or something like that. So I had to drink, or 7 pounds, I had to drink a liter of water to go up to 119 because the commission wouldn't approve it because there are rules. I mean, listen, boxing is like, it's legit. Like they have rules and they try to protect the fighters, which, I wouldn't be involved in the sport if they didn't. Mm-hmm. And so to the promoter, like everybody was on the same page. And so I said, okay. And then they tell me that it's now a 6-rounder, not an 8-rounder. Now, to some people that don't understand boxing, like, oh, but you're in great shape, so it should be easy. It's like, no. The way you fight a 6-rounder is not the same way you fight an 8-rounder. And mind you, I haven't fought 6 rounds. So
is it because, like, with 8 rounds, you have maybe 2 rounds to, like, get into a groove? And
a round or two, or a round and a half to kind of get into a groove and kind of see. Now, mind you, you usually know who you're fighting. Mm. I mean, I've fought a lot against girls. I didn't know who I was fighting, so it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to say that's the reason. It was like, okay, well, I mean, listen, at that point, you can't let anything negative get in your head. And I'm not thinking that I don't want to fight. It's not even about the ticket selling. Like, it's not even that. It's not even that people are coming. It's that I'm ready. Mm-hmm. Like, I was ready to fight, and I wanted to fight. So I was like,
you had to drink this liter of water to go up.
I drank this liter of water to go up a pound, and then, I never saw her. I signed the contract, and I was like, all right, whatever, we're ready to go. Then I find out that one of my medicals is out of date. And it was like the perfect storm. So the MRI we have to get taken, but in certain states, different commissions have different rules. So with Massachusetts, it's like every 3 years, I think you get an MRI. And I obviously had it, but not Florida. It's every year. So I had to get an MRI or I wouldn't be able to fight. So the only appointment I could get.
So did you get that like after the weigh-in? You went to go?
I went to eat, and then I had to schedule the MRI. So thank God I have doctors that are on hand and they can write me scripts, and they're wonderful. They knew what it was about. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Dr. Abbasi. He wrote me the script so that I could get it done right away. Mm-hmm. And so then the only appointment they had was at like 7:00 at night. So mind you, I go to bed at 8:30. So I'm not thinking any of this because now hindsight's 2020. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right, what do I got to do? Because like I'm like, what's the mission? The mission is to fight and win. So I'm like, all right, whatever I got to do.
Right.
So
you're just checking things off the box.
I'm just like, okay. And I don't get emotional because I've been through so much, and I show up. Mm-hmm. I mean, no matter what. I fought with a fractured shoulder. I fought with a blown eardrum. I fought with a torn ligament. Like, I've done some crazy things. Mm-hmm. Not saying that's good, but I got through it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, what do I got to do? I had no injuries going into this fight. It was wonderful. The fight in August, the year prior, I fought with a fractured posterior humeral head fracture that I didn't even know I had because of my pain tolerance. And people don't know these things because, you don't make excuses. You just go out there and do what you got to do. Yeah. And I'm definitely not one to make excuses. I'm just like, whatever. I chose this life. Mm-hmm. It didn't choose me. I mean, maybe it did a little bit. Life. Yeah. But I definitely chose it, and I definitely accept it, and I'm accountable for it. So I ended up going into the MRI that night, and I didn't get out of the MRI until like 9. And I didn't eat until 9:30. I didn't get home until like 10:30, 11.
And it's not like I know you personally.
Now, systematic. Like, you got to think like,
right.
I know how scheduled I am.
And I know that you're not making excuses, that you're not trying to build up this story but the reality is that you're a professional, you're an athlete, you do everything within a certain time frame every day. You eat
I'm very disciplined. Sometimes too much.
Yeah, you stop drinking water at a certain time of the day so that you're not pissing yourself.
So I get my sleep.
Right, mm-hmm. And you're sleeping early so you get enough hours so that you're up at fucking 5 a.m. to go run or do whatever. So this is only like, it's just, crazy. Like, you're doing all these things. Now it's like your whole routine is fucked the night before a fucking fight. Yeah. So it's like,
and you can't let that emotionally disturb you.
Right. And even if it's not emotionally disturbing you, it's like subconsciously there, and it's sitting on your shoulders, and it's still disturbing your body because now you're out of
equilibrium. Yeah, you're equilibrium.
Right.
Well, this is the thing. I'm talking about this from, months past. Like, this is like, again, hindsight. This is not what I'm thinking as I'm going through it. I'm like, all right, cool. I get sleep. Okay, whatever. I'm ready. So I didn't let my mom take chorizo that night. And chorizo is the reason I get up at 5 a.m. I mean, I usually get up at 5:30, 6 for myself, but like he wakes me up because he eats at that time because he got used to my schedule of getting up at 5 to go, do whatever I got to do at 6 or 6:30. So my mom didn't take him that night. So I go to bed at midnight and I wake up at 5 a.m. with him. Plus, I didn't want him to leave because of what I just been through with him.
Yeah.
So I was like, Derek was in the guest room. My boyfriend was in the guest room, but the dog was in bed with me. So I get up and I go and I take care of him. And then I'm like, and I wasn't hungry. So now, like my normal eating pattern, I'm not eating.
Because you went to sleep at a different time.
And I ate late.
Yep.
So now everything's off. And and people can say like, oh, it can't be. Yeah. When you're that systematic and you're that disciplined, because you have to be, because that's how I fire on all cylinders when I'm, everything's, this doesn't happen. Like all of this at once. And again, I'm not pulling out of a fight. Could I have? Probably. Should I have? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just like, whatever. So, okay. So whatever. So I don't eat and we're driving down to the venue and I'm getting I ate a protein shake and some protein pancakes before the fight, and that's all I had. And I was like, I just couldn't eat. We're driving down to the fight and I'm getting nauseous. And I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, no, I'm good. Like in my head, I'm just like, whatever, you've been through enough, you're fine. I get into the back. I walk past the girl and I kind of that's when I first saw her. Like, I'm like, was that my opponent? And they were like, and I'm like, okay. So knew nothing about it. I'm like, all right, whatever. Warmed up. I felt like I was focused. I felt like I was kind of trying to relax myself too, because I think part of me was subconsciously there was some angst because of what's been going on, and I was like, no, I was trying to override my body's natural reaction to what's been happening, and I was like, no, I'm good. I was super confident walking out.
It's like your brain and your nervous system are doing two different
100%.
things, because your brain is like, you're fine, you've been through this. Your nervous system is like, wait, something's off, and this is not normal.
I had felt this feeling walking out to the ring one other time, actually my second loss, that something wasn't right. And I knew it. The second loss, it was because my coach at the time did things that weren't normal for him, where he shut the door, made me stay in a dark room, which I don't normally do. Usually I have people around me, it's light, the energy's good, everybody's happy, and it was just this weird solitary thing. And then when I got in the ring, I was sparring for that fight with a southpaw boxer. I ended up fighting an orthodox puncher, and I ended up fighting myself, him, and her. And it was walking to the ring, I knew something was wrong. And I had the same feeling here now that I look back, but I didn't think that.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I kept telling myself I'm good.
Because you're focused on the task at hand.
Yes.
You're like, now you have to walk out. Now you have
but
to
here's
get
the
through
here's
this
the
fight.
psychological, the mind game. It's like, why do I have to keep telling myself I'm good? I don't normally have to do that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to almost hype myself up, you're good. Meanwhile, subconsciously, I wasn't good. And so we get out there, okay, cool, get in the ring, everything's fine. I come out the first round and I'm like, I didn't feel present, but I felt like I was just trying to feel out the opponent, which is what you do. I was fighting her kind of similarly how I fought the last girl. But there's two things now that I look back. I don't know if subconsciously my body, because I've never fought back to back like that. And I mean, I did 3 fights in 6 weeks, but that was in the beginning of my career.
A lot of people fight,
No,
2
yeah.
weeks apart.
Yeah. So, but again, I took the risk. I own the risk. But so I remember the first round, it's a little bit of a blur. I didn't feel as present as I had in all my other fights. But I was going, and I think it was you that I heard in the second round telling me I have to throw punches.
Probably me.
It probably was you.
I was ringside.
It was like, Mo, you got to let your hands go.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say that, and I was like, and here I am thinking I am, and it was weird, and I'm like, wait, but she's not, I was moving my head, but I wasn't letting my hands go. She landed some good punches, but it was weird, and I felt like she was confident in the third round. I was like, wait a minute. So in the third, I remember I came back in the second, and Derek saying, this isn't a sparring session. And I was so disconnected from my moment that I was like, well, no shit. Am I sparring? Mm-hmm. So I just immediately went to I went from I guess notch 5 to notch 20, where I was like, go. Mm-hmm. So it was 4 rounds. I went, and I know now, and I felt it. She was going. She was getting tired. I was like, oh, I'm going to stop her. So I tried stopping her in the 6th round, but it went to a decision. And I was still confident because I knew, okay, the first 2 rounds I may have given them up, but I had the 4, so at least I'll win 4-2.
Facts.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, cool. But I mean, I was like, I don't know what happened those first 2 rounds. I don't know.
I think that just subconsciously,
I wasn't present.
8 fucking rounds, maybe.
I think that's, yes, I feel that way too. It's like, and that's the thing. I've gone back and forth and I'm like, what was it? Because, I want to know what, I like to understand in order to apply, in order to learn. And I was like.
It's not like, she landed some shots, so did you, obviously. But it's not like you were getting beat up for 2 rounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were moving your head, you were moving around. It just looked like you were taking your time to like feel it out. Yeah. And then something switched and you're like, oh shit, I gotta do it. Yeah. So I think subconsciously.
It was my corner. It was my corner. Because what I was feeling and they were seeing, and that's where the corner is so important, where you gotta trust your corner. Mm-hmm. When I saw Derek looking at me like, we're not sparring, because he knows I'm a dog in there. Yeah. I mean, if you can see, it's on my Instagram. The first fight, the fight in Worcester, is on there. Mm-hmm. And so you could see I go in, you know what I mean? And you could see my head movement and you could see me countering and things like that. So I throw a lot, and I was like, it was just weird. So the fight was over and I'm like, okay, I felt still like confident, maybe it wasn't, maybe the first 2 rounds, whatever. I was confident that I won the fight. And when they announced the decision, I was like, it was a split decision for her. And I was like, and she was shocked. And I was like, what?
Everyone in the fucking crowd goes, what? Or like, what the like literally everybody. Everyone said, what the fuck out loud. Like, what are these fucking judges seeing? Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't get beat up in the first 2 rounds. And then the next 4, you were fucking wailing on this bitch. Like, finally, like, we were like, motherfucking throw your hands, what the fuck? Everyone's screaming. But when they announced that she,
it wasn't that I was getting hit. It was my head movement. Right. I'm a very defensive fighter. Yeah.
Like, she wasn't hitting you like that. Like, whatever. Yeah. But everyone in the crowd, like, said, what the fuck? Like, loud as hell. The people sitting behind me were like, what the fuck kind of shit is this? Yeah. We were talking to them, like, throughout the night or whatever. But everybody was fucking shocked. Like, that was insane.
And I remember in the ring, I looked at Derek and I was like, I was so perplexed. And then I got out of the ring and nobody knew where the exit, like where I had to get. I was like, get me the fuck out of here. Yeah. Get me the fuck. Because I felt like this rage, and this is what I've learned to use my powers for good, not evil, where I didn't when I was younger because I was very violent, where I was like, get me the fuck out of here. Because I felt like this eruption about to just go, and I just wanted to get out. And they walked me to the locker room, and it was me, Smitty, my manager, Luigi, and Derek. And I just started to just, bleh. And it was just me talking to myself, but out loud. And it was so healthy. And Smitty was like, talk your shit, Mo, talk your shit. Like, let it out. Because it's not good to hold it in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to let it out. And I was in a safe environment. It wasn't like I was causing a scene. And again, I'm composed and I'm a professional, so I would never.
You're not like punching in the fucking wall.
No, and I wasn't like going up to her and being like, oh, like, listen, she showed up. She did. So what I found out after the fight was that opponent, they told my manager they wouldn't get on the plane if we didn't lower it to 6 rounds. So the night before they got there, they would not get on the plane if it was 8 rounds. I didn't know any of this. So I'm sitting here
they're not going to tell you this before.
No, I'm not like, I'm just like, whatever I got to do. So it's just, it's messed up stuff that happens. Do I feel like all that? I don't. Listen, it's like an array of stuff. Am I the better fighter? Yes. Yes. But I just felt like there was just a bunch of stuff. And listen, I took a risk. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that. Because I took the risk and I showed up and gave 100% of what I had based on everything else. It's not excuses. It is what it is. Yeah. In the judge's eyes, I lost the fight. In my mind, I'm like, what happened? What did those judges see? How could they? But this is the thing with boxing. It's human error and it's human and whatever. And I remember when I got out of the ring, I went over to the table where I had a lot of supporters at the table, and one of the Alicia Ashley, who was actually my sparring partner, I was her sparring partner really, because she was already a world champion back when I was in my 20s, and she was there, and I was so grateful she was there because she's a big reason I'm still doing this at my age. She was in the Guinness Book of World Records 2-time for being the oldest oldest boxer that became a world champion at 50 years old. Wow. So she's 57 now. She's amazing. So she said to me, she was like, I remember she put her hand, she goes, what was it? What happened? And I said to her, I was like, I think I thought I was going 8 rounds. Mm-hmm. And I was like feeling her out too much. And she was like, yeah. She goes, that's what it looked like to me. And I was like, and I didn't let my hands go the way that I should have and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, it was really just interesting experience. But this is life. And this
it's
is
hard too, because if you think you have 1.5 to 2 rounds to feel someone out.
And mind you, women fight 2 minutes. We don't fight 3 minutes. We fight 2-minute rounds.
I was just about to say, like, 2 minutes is not a long time to feel somebody out. Like, 2 minutes goes, I mean, it probably feels longer for you, but for the fans, like, 2 minutes is fast as fuck. So, like, in your head, if you think it's 8 rounds and you think you have 4 minutes to feel this person out, like, with a break in between, you know what I'm saying? It's completely different. Like, but I'm not saying it because I'm your friend. Like, you should have won. Like, no, you should have fucking won. Everyone in that fucking crowd was like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah. And so for me, I had to like sit back and say, okay, like, you know, again, I've had 2 losses and I've always come back. And unfortunately, like the undefeated record is the big thing these days. So people aren't looking at people that came back from like serious adversity and championing them. They're not celebrating them. They celebrate the ones that, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that all of them, all boxers, but the ones that take the risks and the ones that go through this, like, I mean, Muhammad Ali had tons of losses. Roberto Duran, like Floyd Mayweather's probably like the, you know what I mean? But like, you can argue whether that was correct or not. You know what I mean? So it's just this whole thing and this whole idea. And this is why I love podcasts and I love sharing this experience, because, you know, there's so much more that goes into it than people know.
Yeah. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Like,
well, for example, my first world title, I was 13-0, and I fought at the Garden, and Top Rank, Bob Arum, they were going to sign me, and I was on Miguel Cotto's undercard, and my coach at the time decided to go to Belgium and work with a male fighter because he was getting paid more money, but he abandoned me for my first world title fight. And women, mind you, I started boxing when women, nothing was what it was now. We were like a sideshow. It was like you never saw females on cards. Now we're televised, you know, and getting all these opportunities. And so I couldn't miss this opportunity, and my coach left me, and I fought for my first world title by myself, and I blew my eardrum in that fight. And I remember I lost the fight, and I came back to the corner, and it was just such a, but like, because I've been through those things and I've come back from losses, 2 losses, that I was like, you know, I had a draw for a world title, like things like that. And I'm like, all right, things just sometimes don't align.
And aside from fighting, like, those are the things that just build character.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man.
You know, you grow as an athlete and as a professional and whatever, but as a human, you also
But that's what it's about, because when you're in the ring, and I think a lot of young fighters, and if there's anybody out there, whatever it is, and they say, you got to eat, sleep, and shit boxing, like, you don't. You have to know how to prioritize. And when you're in a sport like this, you need to prioritize, but you also have to have a life. And this is what happened, I believe, and I may be speaking a little out of turn, but I believe with Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was it. I mean, Dana White built her, and I was a fan of Ronda, you know, and I just watched her. But when she lost to Holly Holm, her world crumbled. And the first thing I thought was, man, she's identified as Ronda Rousey, the MMA star, for so long. Does she have anything else? And she admitted on one of the talk shows that she was going to commit suicide, because she didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot with these athletes. And I never wanted that to happen to me. And I think it was how I was raised, and also how I was coached by other people, and my manager especially, because he's been with me since I was 21. He was my first amateur coach. And he said, like, I went to college. You know, I always worked. I always, you know what I mean? It wasn't because I couldn't focus on boxing. I mean, yeah, you need to work. I mean, but it was also to know that there's life after boxing.
Yeah.
That boxing isn't it. So I grew.
And there's life alongside of boxing.
100%. Exactly. And that's okay. That if you want to go to the movies, you want to go out with your friends, because there was a time where I was afraid to do anything, and I would like lock myself in my house and just be like, I just got to do this, because if I don't do this.
And that happens to a lot of athletes too, like even baseball players or whatever, like they become so focused on the sport. Whatever,
which is not wrong.
Right. Yeah. Which obviously you have to be dedicated to your sport or whatever. But then the mental health issues come after that, because that's all you're doing. You don't have a life. Like, you live, sleep, breathe, shit, that sport. The rest of your life is what? And then you burn yourself out. You don't want to play it anymore. Yeah. You don't want to do it anymore. And then you're young as fuck, and you're like, I don't know what to do.
You have no hobbies.
Right.
Because you couldn't have hobbies. Yeah. I felt like that too at one point. Exactly. I'm like, what are my hobbies? Like, what else? Like, what else do you like to do? And I'm like, I mean, I remember with Derek. Derek said to me, you know, he's my boyfriend and my coach, and he was like, well, what are your hobbies? I was like,
you're like boxing.
I'm like, I like to run, you know, like I like to go to the gym. I'm like, I mean, I go to the beach, and I was like, what are my hobbies? You know what I mean? And because like there were times where I had hobbies, like I dance, you know, I love salsa, you know, but then again, I can't dance when I'm training because I'm tired.
And not only that, like you don't want to risk like twisting your ankle or some shit and hurting yourself.
Exactly. So there's all these like little things that go into it. But this is my story and this is my journey, and everybody has their own. I've always been very transparent about things and open and honest about how I got into boxing and why I'm still in the sport. And, you know, now I'm fighting, I'm fighting on the 22nd. You know, I'm fighting this Saturday. And I'm so in a different place where, you know, it's just this freedom that I feel now where people are like, oh, you lost your, like, I don't think about the last fight. You can't, because I've been there already where I've come back. And this is the value in seeing fighters come back from losses, is that who are they now? Because an undefeated, you know, I know people that are undefeated that don't know what it feels like to lose.
No, and I know people who lost 5 fights ago and it's still haunting them.
Yeah,
and they're still talking about it every single day, like it happened yesterday. Like, and
that's the psychological impact and the inability to look back and say, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? And how? And that's what I'm sharing with everybody today is kind of like how I've made peace and why I'm able to get into the ring Saturday feeling like I got no weight on my back. I'm like, and also I know now, I'm like, are my medicals all up to date? Yes. Do we have an opponent? Yes. Like they actually switched my opponent recently, which it's not uncommon, but she's going to be at the weigh-in. Like now we know.
Okay, cool.
You know, like, yeah. I'm like, okay, like I've been through enough. But sometimes it's not even like it was her fault. You know what I mean? Like, listen, they're coming to win. They're going to do everything they can to win. So if they know that, I mean, whether they knew we needed it, whether I shouldn't have taken the fight, like there's so many like shoulda, woulda, couldas or whatever. But it's like, you know, and that's a big reason why I'm sharing this. It's just to give you guys like paint a picture for you to see what it is and but I don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like I have so much going on in my, like so much, and I love the value of my life. And I've always said this, I love my life. And you know, you've seen me, you've never seen me like, because like I understand and I've healed and I've grown. I mean, I came from a girl that was in an abusive relationship that had like no self-esteem, that went to the gym to better herself for her abuser, that never dreamt of becoming a world champion, never dreamt of doing anything in boxing, just wanted to find an outlet to heal. Yeah. And boxing just kept giving me more challenges, but healing. And I'm just like,
because now you're overcoming those challenges. So it's like, mentally you're becoming stronger as well.
And I also I'm a better friend because of it. I'm a better girlfriend because of it. I'm a better daughter because now when you go through something, I can speak from a certain experience where I can say, hey, like this is what I went through, like maybe this can help you. And I love to do that. I love to help people and I love to use my experiences to kind of share. I never tell them what they should do, but I'm like, well, this is what I went through and this is how I dealt with it. Maybe you can take something from it, you know, because then it's like, I didn't go through all this shit for nothing.
That's what I love about our personal conversations is that we never call each other to just be like, oh my God, guess what I saw, da, 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 da. Like we call each other like, and we talk about real shit for like 30 minutes and we're like, all right, bitch, bye. Like, you know, and it's.
But those are the conversations and those are the only friendships I have. I just don't have room for that. And, you know, and people always tell me like, you don't look 44. You don't. But man, I have the experience, but I've also taken care of my body and my mind and my soul and
for like ever.
Yeah,
like you've been doing this forever.
Yeah, literally since I found because I did drugs, I was smoking cigarettes, I was doing all that when I was younger, and then when I finally started feeling value for myself through boxing and taking care of me because it's such an individualistic sport, it was only about me that I started feeling like wow, like I want to take care of myself, like I didn't want to. You know, self-abuse and break because I was deserving of better, you know. But yeah, coming to this place now and getting into the ring Saturday in the same place that it happened, like, you know, I went back there and I watched some fights there and I felt like like I'm glad I went back to watch some fights. I sat ringside and I just watched and I was like, I was in that ring, okay, I know. And you know what I mean? Like it's just almost like a full circle closure for yourself. And then you get in there because I'm not. Anytime I would leave the house, even from my amateur days, I would always turn around and say, okay, when you come back here, everything's going to look different because you're going to be different. And that's super profound because you're different with every fight, but that's every experience. No matter what you go through, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, whether it's, family, whether it's whatever, you're always going to be different. It's not bad.
Or you should always be different. You should be growing, because there are people that stay stuck in the same shit forever.
which is mostly fear-based.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, just the mindset and the lack of growth and just whatever, choosing to stay there for, the pity party or whatever the case is. But yeah, I mean, you should be growing through your experiences, whether you're an athlete or like a normal person.
And owning your truth, owning your decisions. Like, I owned the fact that I fought back to back. I owned that I signed that contract to fight at a higher weight. I owned the fact that I wasn't going to see my opponent. I owned the fact, like, I owned it. And I still showed up for me. And I'm so proud of myself for that. And it took a long time for me to say that about myself, not this fight, but in general, just to be like, hey.
No, and I was there and I saw it, and I was like, your opponent's not like. Well, I didn't tell you because obviously I'm not.
Yeah, because you were at the weigh-in with me. Yeah.
Right, but I'm like, her opponent's not here. Fucking weird. But you were just like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm ready to eat. Like, where's my water? Fucking, you just.
What do I gotta do? Just like a professional.
Yeah.
That's what I know. And for people that know that, and for people that do their research on me, and there's people that don't because they just want to see what's in front of them and what's easy, which is usually. But if you do your research on me, you'll see. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think where I'm very confident in who I am and how I speak, because I know me. I don't care what other people think, because nobody can take that from me. Nobody can take my experiences, my overcoming challenges, my pain, my suffering, my healing. It's mine. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful that I have that. But that's why I always said boxing was a gift from God. And what I do with it is my gift back from him. And I'm in it because I'm in it. And I'm going to be in it until he moves me to not be in it anymore. And I'll know when that time is coming. You know, it could be after this fight. It could be, I don't know. You know what I mean? I know that right now I'm showing up to this fight and I'm ready to fight. Like I always am.
What do you think is the difference between your last camps for your last two fights versus this one?
Great question. So Alicia is now part of my team, which I'm really excited about. It's, and listen, Derek's a phenomenal coach, but I never thought I'd shit where I eat, and here I am. And it's tough to be in a relationship with your coach because, every relationship has its moments, and Derek's such a good man, and he's so calm and patient, and I'm a firecracker, which I own again. And, there's times where I have to go into the gym and I may be frustrated with him or annoyed with him. And now I have to take instruction from him and listen to him. And and I'm not saying we were very professional, like people didn't even know, but it still affected us to a degree. And, I had an opportunity to have a female coach with her experience and her knowing me. I mean, just like the fight was like the perfect storm for the negative, this was like the perfect, I don't know,
that was
for
like
the positive.
Introduction,
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that fight happened. I'm grateful everything happened because now I've got, Derek, Alicia, and Smitty. Like, I'm like, wow, like look at how a negative turned into a positive. And, that night, I people ask me like, how did you deal with it? Like after the fight, like, yeah, I was flipping out. I was pissed and all that. But I made a conscious decision. A friend of mine was there and she brought me to her suite to shower and change. And she's like, stay here as long as you need to. And it's people like that, Dina, who I'm so grateful for because you don't know what you need until you get it. And I didn't realize what I needed because I was ready to just be like, all right, this is what I'm wearing. I'm not showering. She was like, no, you need to go to the room, my room.
Take a minute.
And she took care of me in a different way. But it was three women that, and it's the men's job, but it was how it was supposed to be. It was Alicia, and then it was Dina, and then it was my friend Tatiana, who I was in Brazil, and she did an ultra marathon. So, it was Tatiana's first time seeing me fight, and she was literally right in my corner, ringside for the fight. And so she came up to me, and she was just like, she was so like fascinated, but she admired me and appreciated it. And she was just like, so it was like those three women stand out the most to me. And then when Dina took me up to her room and took care of me, and I went and I showered, I changed. And I just said, you know what? I've been here before. I know this feeling of losing. And I'm like, I'm not carrying this shit. Because the other ones I carried. Yeah. Like other people, like you said, people I'm like, I carried them for longer than I needed to. I'm like, I'm not carrying this, not for a freaking moment. Because I am damn proud of myself. I looked myself in the mirror and I spoke to myself. I said a prayer. I spoke to the Lord. I said, take this from me. I'm giving it to you. And just take it from me. And then I went downstairs and I felt like a different person where people were like,
watched some fights and hung out and
people were like, you seem like you're okay. I'm like, yeah, I am. What am I going to be? What am I going to do? Like, not, again, what's in your control. I did everything I could that was in my control. The MRI was not in my control. You know what I mean? Those things, there was things, my opponent was not in my control.
Yeah.
It was up to, I mean, there was my other people that could have maybe, but I'm not going to sit here and start, it happened. And it is what it is. So now having Alicia part of the team and being able to like go through like emotional stuff and talk to her about different things, it's nice to have that support of another woman. And like I said,
and another woman who's been in your
exact position. You know, I mean, Alicia had tons of losses too because she took risks. She took tons of risks, but she had a ton of wins, and she had 6 world titles, and she was in a Guinness Book of World Records, and she's smart, and we're very similar. She's known me since I was 21. We trained under the same coach back then, so she knows the psychological issues that I had because of that coach at the time. That was not the most healthiest environment for me to train in, and it was like just all healing, and it was great, and I have 3 amazing minds in my corner, and I'm so grateful because I've been there where I had nobody in my corner, and I had, you know what I mean? And I've always had people in my corner. I never not had anybody, but I'm talking about outside the ring, that kind of thing where I've been alone and I've been like, but I think I needed to be. I feel like there's times where you need to be alone and struggling on your own with nobody helping you because you got to figure out how to climb out of that rut yourself, because that's what bigger sense of freedom than to know that you can get yourself through something, not the codependency of looking for somebody to save you. And that's the the victim mentality and the savior complex where you attract saviors when you're a victim and you're like, no, I got to do this. And it's a freedom and a just this great feeling, the strength, inner strength that you feel to know that you can.
Has your actual training changed much?
Yeah. So before I was, there was some issues with my strength training. I was probably lifting a little too much because I was getting a little bored with boxing because there were challenges, but it was more like I was like muscling a lot for me, and I was overcoming some injuries and some pain that I was dealing with. And, Christiana Marin, Dr. Marin is my physical therapist, and I see her twice a week when I'm in camp. It's not like, oh, you're in camp. It's like, no, like I said to her this camp, I said, it feels so good to see you and not be in pain because I had to learn.
It's just maintenance now.
Yeah. I had to learn not to muscle everything because I was doing a lot with obviously I have a very strong upper body and traps, but I was doing a lot here and not a lot here. And I was locked up all the time because I was
tense.
Yeah. So now my hands are like here and I'm throwing more, faster. I'm setting up my power shots a little bit differently. And this had to come from me because, Smitty and Derek were trying to get me to do these things, but there was like a communication thing. And I wasn't, and I take ownership as the athlete because it's not like the coach can only do so much. They can coach you. Like you have to also take responsibility as an athlete. It's my responsibility to make weight. Like we talked about, it's my responsibility to you know what I mean? I'm walking around. I got my weigh-ins on Friday. I'm drinking 7 liters of water. We'll see if that works today. I weigh in, I have 2 days to weigh in and, and I'm 122 pounds and I'm fighting at 118. So I'm fully hydrated. Like I just went to the bathroom. I could probably go again. You know what I mean? Like
you could pee and drop 4 pounds right now.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it because I'm full, I feel good, I'm healthy, but it's also how I live my life outside the ring. And the thing with Alicia too, which is funny, is that she fought at 122. I think she fought once or twice at 118, but she walked around just like me at my weight. So she didn't struggle making weight. So it's not like you know what I mean? Like she was just like me. And I finally found my true weight class in my 40s, which is trippy. Because it's like you're not supposed to be able to lose weight when you're 40. You're not supposed to. And I'm like, well, here I am doing it
easily.
Yeah, but it's also again that's also a testament to my my discipline and my consistency. And I think that's the biggest thing is being consistent. I get a lot of people that are like, oh, how did you do it? Or I see a lot of people struggling, and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I don't have to do that because that sucks. Like the last thing you want on your mind, the fight should be the fight. The fight shouldn't be the scale. Right. But 90% of the time with fighters, the scale is the real fight. Yeah. And the fight's easy for them because they're fighting them. But it's like you did that to yourself because you're your only opponent at the scale. You're not fighting somebody else. You're fighting yourself. And that's deep. Yeah. That's so deep. Yeah. And that's something that I don't think people understand. But I think that's a lot of people's issues. You know what I mean? Whether they're not happy with their bodies or figuring out how do I lose weight? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I feel? And they got to stop with how do I look better? How do I feel better? Because when you feel better, you're going to look better. It's just going to happen. Yeah. And I noticed that because I had an eating disorder. I was a compulsive eater. I was 180 pounds. I had a terrible relationship with food. And then I was anorexic first. Then I've been through so much crap. but like I'm glad because now I can speak from so many different points and tell you what I've learned, you know, and grown and you know, and now it's like, and yeah, everything seems, you know, what's funny, I can tell you this quick story. When I was fighting in California, I had fought a lot in Mexico. And my coach Haas, who I love to death, I called him the other day because I stay close with a lot of my coaches because they've had such an impact in my life. And I said to Haas, I remember when I was fighting in Mexico, we fought a lot out there in Tijuana, in Los Mochis, Sinaloa, like some crazy places, gone through some crazy things. And I was fighting in Oxnard where I lived. And I was the main event and everything was like, we're in the locker room. And I looked at Haas and I was like, I feel weird. And he's like, why? Everything's going great. I'm like, yeah. I'm not used to that. Like, I'm not used to everything actually being normal. I'm used to them, you know what I mean? Like, me finding out the girl weighs 40 pounds more than me. Like, and, you know, the fight's been, you know, everything's been changed and everything's different. And in the middle of the fight, like, there was a time where, like, you know, and I've been through this with the rounds
like
changing.
Some kind of chaos has to happen
for it to be normal. For it to be normal for me because that's always how it's been. Like, I thrive in chaos. But then when things were just, like, cool, I'm like, oh, my God. But now everything's been good, and I'm like, no, I'm completely embracing, accepting, no, and we're celebrating it.
We're too old to be.
No. It's like I'm done. I'm like I paid my dues. I'm good. Yeah. And it's funny because that's the thing with the losses. Like I see a lot of these girls, and I don't. You know, if there's anything I can say, if there's any other female boxers, MMA fighters, or competitors out there, I mean, male or female, really, don't be afraid to take risks, and don't go out there to lose. Obviously, you're going out there to win, but as long as you go out there to win and you do your best, whatever happens is going to happen. But unfortunately with boxing these days, it's so like, oh, how many Instagram followers do you have? How many, not how much adversity have you come back from, not what did you look like when you fight, not how many, it's not even how many tickets you can sell. You know what I mean? Like or how marketable, I shouldn't say how many tickets you can sell, but how marketable are you? Because I'm sitting here going like, all right, so why wouldn't you want to promote? I mean, I don't know. There's things that I understand about promoters being that I'm 44 and things like that, but I'm like,
it's just like the era.
Like it's a times thing, and I'm just like, you know, it's just so, you know, it is what it is. There's nothing you can change, but I can't focus on the negative. I can't focus on, or even if it is negative, maybe it's positive that it's happening like that. Like I don't know, but my life, my career, and where everything's brought me is I'm grateful that I didn't make boxing my only thing.
Right.
I'm glad that I was an entrepreneur, that I am an entrepreneur. I'm glad that I got my education. I'm glad that I stepped out and spoke and shared my story and was able to connect and help and, you know, for other people and coach and, you know, commentate and all this other stuff because I feel like now my basket's so full that it's like, oh, well, what can't you do? Yeah. But it's not even about what can I do. It's what do you want to do? And that's empowering.
So tell everybody about your upcoming fight on Saturday. So, look at her. She's here on a podcast like 2 days before she weighs in and shit.
And that's not normal. I mean, it happens, but you
it's not
don't
normal.
Look like, I mean, normal. Some people know, some people don't know. But I'm fighting Saturday at the Hard Rock Live in the casino here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with Heavyweight Factory, Chris Lawrence promotional company, and Chris has been great. You know, after that fight, side note, after that fight, he was like, I don't know what happened. You won that fight. Let's run it back. And side note, I was ready to run it back, and she wouldn't take the fight. Yeah. She would not take the fight at 118.
Because she knew it was a fluke.
So then she went and she fought again, and she got like 3 losses after she fought me. And so if there's people out there judging my loss off that, we probably shouldn't. But good luck if you do. So, you know, it is what it is. You can't control them. But I'm just so grateful to Chris for giving me the opportunity. I'm grateful for my fans and for you for supporting me through all of this. And, you know, and giving me the platform too to share my story and be able to come out there and, you
Always.
know, and I do what I love. I love boxing. I hate the business. Nobody will tell you they love the business. Nobody, even if they're making millions, they're not going to tell you. And I'm not making millions, nowhere near it. I do this because I love it. I don't need to do it. I do it because the finances it's not there. You know, it could be there. It's there for a couple women, but not many. But I love what I do, and I love the fight. I love the grind. I love the daily struggle. And, you know, the receiver posted something from the Eagles that really resonated with me about how he was going to win, how he felt winning the championship. And it lasted for 2 days, and then he didn't feel anything. Because sometimes it's not about the championship. It's about the daily grind. It's about the challenges that you overcome day in day, the small victories. And when I started making things about the small victories, I started to heal from those bigger setbacks. Because I realized the value in who I am and what I do is day in and day out, not the biggest picture.
Yeah, that's really sound advice. That's why they say like set small goals before you go after the big one.
Well, get up and make your bed in the morning.
Yeah,
it's the start of your day. And every morning, like Derek laughs at me because I got a ton of pillows on my bed. I
make my bed every day too.
Yeah,
it's the first thing I do.
I tell him, I'm like, I got a ton of pillows, and they're always. And even
in
when
line.
Edgar actually was like, "How does Derek feel putting those pillows?" I'm like, "He don't make the bed, I make it."
Yeah, he doesn't touch the pillows.
I make the bed.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Saturday, guys. This Saturday, February 22nd.
Yep.
Hard Rock Hollywood Casino. Come watch Maureen fight. There's going to be a couple other good fights on the card as well. I will be there. I'll be the one screaming like, "Fucking knock her head off!" You know, all the F-bombs. But thank you for coming, my friend.
Of course.
I know you're in the middle of water-ing yourself.
It's more going to the bathroom. Yeah, go to the bathroom, exactly.
But we gotta pee, so everybody go follow Maureen. I'm gonna tag her everywhere. She'll be all over the screen and down below. And that's it. See you guys next time.
Thank you.